Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to lesson 86 of Chef's Apprentice, learning to cook like a pro, one small plate at a time. This lesson is ricotta and mascarpone gnudi with lobster and morels. Gnudi are starch-based Italian dumplings, usually made with potato. This dish shows you how to make an unusually and very light type of gnocchi called gnudi because it's made with ricotta cheese. This dish also showcases the marvelous and marvelously expensive morel mushroom and how well it pairs with lobster. These gnudi are very delicate, so handle them gingerly. The challenge of this dish is to make, cook, and plate the gnudi without them falling apart. Techniques today are beating egg, chopping and seasoning, making gnudi, sweating, deglazing, reducing, and keeping warm, mounting and making a sauce, sauteing, simmering, shocking in an ice bath, steaming lobster, plating, cooling, and garnishing. So let's start cooking. Okay, let's talk about the mise en place for lesson 86. First, we're going to need some ricotta cheese. I use whole milk ricotta. You could use low fat if you want. I think they hold together better if the gnudi hold together better if you use the whole milk ricotta. And some people say ricotta. Mostly my Italian friends. I'm not Italian, so I'm not allowed to say that. But I say ricotta. Some Italian people say ricotta. And so you'll need about 1 cup of that, okay? Then we'll need some mascarpone cheese. This is like a cream cheese. Sometimes I say mascarpone or mascarpone, but it's actually M-A-S-C-A, so it's mascarpone. And that's kind of like a cream cheese consistency. We'll need about 1/3 of a cup of that. Then we'll need about 1/2 a cup of flour. Actually, I'm using an actual half cup of flour in this instance. We may need some more to add to it, depending on whether it holds together or not. In addition, we'll need some to dust the gnudi after we make them. So I have extra flour here. Then we'll need to have 3 egg yolks that have been lightly beaten. I've already done that. We'll need to have a pinch of nutmeg. How much is a pinch? A pinch is about 1/8 of a teaspoon, maybe a little less. I kind of eyeballed it. This is probably about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Freshly grated nutmeg, okay? You'll also need kosher salt and a peppermill for freshly ground black pepper. We'll need to have some spinach. Now this is 5 ounces of fresh leaf spinach that has been wilted. We've done wilting in prior lessons. Basically just steam it until the leaves have become deep green and they're no longer like raw leaves. And then what you want to do is press the water out of it, then spin it dry, then try to dry it again, and then chop it so it's pretty finely chopped, and then leave it out so it can dry even more. The drier it is, the better it is. The wetter it is, the more likely your gnudi are going to fall apart when you try to cook them, okay? Then we'll need to have some cornmeal to dust the gnudi. I'm going to put cornmeal down on the sheet pan, and then we may dust the gnudi with flour if we're going to cook them right away. If you're going to make them and cook them later, you should dust them with cornmeal. Then we'll need to have 8 ounces of lobster meat, preferably uncooked, because we're going to steam it, okay? Now, if you can only get cooked lobster meat, that's fine. We're going to go through the same process, and the steaming process is just going to impart some flavor and some aroma to it, okay? And so 8 ounces of lobster meat. Then we'll need to have about 1/2 cup of white wine, and I'm using these little Sutter Home bottles here because they're very convenient. We'll also need to have about 1/2 cup of dry vermouth. Then we'll need to have 1.5 cups, or about 1.5 cups of lobster stock. Remember, we make our own stock in this course, and I've talked many times about the bonus lessons on that and a stock chart on my website. We'll also need to have 8 ounces of unsalted butter, about 2 tablespoons of finely chopped shallots, 5 or 6 sprigs of fresh thyme that you've tied together with some kitchen string. Then we'll need to have some morel mushrooms. Now you can either buy morel mushrooms fresh or you can buy them dried and then reconstitute them. I said in the introduction that morels are marvelously expensive. This is a 1/2 ounce right here of dried morels, which cost $20. That works out to $640 per pound. Now you might say, why using such expensive ingredients? Well, first of all, These are great with lobster. They're great in this dish. But remember, this is how to cook like a pro, so we're using pro ingredients. If you can't get the morels, can't afford them, or you don't want to buy them, or you can't find them, I think shiitakes would be the best substitute in this situation. And they look like little trees. Look like kind of like little trees. And so if you buy them fresh, I want you to cut them into either quarters or sixths. So for a big one like this, you cut it down the middle and then cut it across twice. That gives you 6 pieces. If they're smaller, cut them into quarters. Now if you buy dried ones, you can reconstitute them by putting them in a small saucepan, covering them with water, wine, stock, or a mixture of those things, and then simmering them for about 20 minutes, and then take them out of the liquid and allow them to dry and cut them, as I said, and keep that liquid for some other purpose. It'd be great to use in mushroom risotto. We'll also need about 1 tablespoon of chopped chives. I have a whole lot more than that here. I'm tired of buying packages of chives, using a little bit, and then the rest go bad. My camera cut out there for a moment. After I chop the whole package of chives, I leave them out in the air to dry, and then I keep them as dried chopped chives. And it works better if you're in an arid climate. We'll need about 1 tablespoon of chopped chives. And then finally we'll need a hunk of Parmesan cheese. Today we're going to grate it or shave it over the finished gnudi. But if you want, you could use cheese that's already been grated or already been shaved. But today we're going to use a hunk of Parmesan cheese. Okay, that is all of our ingredients. We're going to break now, come back, and I'll show you the equipment for lesson 86. All right, let's talk about the equipment for lesson 86. We'll need a cutting board and chef's knife. We'll also need a bowl to beat the 3 egg yolks. I've already done that. We'll need to have a grater. This grater will be used to grate the fresh nutmeg and also to grate the hunk of Parmesan cheese. And you'll need a bowl to grate the nutmeg into. It could be any size bowl, wide, shallow bowl. But what I think is important is to have a bowl. Now you're only going to be grating a pinch of nutmeg, but it's easier to have a much larger bowl to grate it into. Otherwise, as you're grating it, most of or a lot of the nutmeg will actually go outside of whatever you're grating it into. So I use a wider bowl to do the grating. We'll also need to have a salad spinner to dry or help to dry the spinach. We need to have some towels to blot the spinach and the morels, and you can use either kitchen towels or paper towels. We need to have a bowl to mix the dough, and so I already have the flour in this bowl and a wooden spoon to help mix it. We need to have a sheet pan to hold the gnudi after we make them. We'll need to have a saucepan and a wooden spoon to make the sauce. And then we're going to need to have a bowl and a strainer and a rubber spatula to strain that sauce into. And after we strain the sauce through the strainer with the rubber spatula into this clean bowl, we're going to put the sauce back into the saucepan, and you'll need to clean out the saucepan first. We'll also need to have a steamer. Now, this steamer is going to be used to wilt the spinach and to steam the lobster. We'll also need to have a saute pan to saute the morels, and a wooden spoon to help with that. Then you'll need to have a bowl to hold the lobster after you've cooked it. You'll need to have a bowl to hold the morels after you cook them, after you've sauteed them as well. You'll also need to have a pan to cook the gnudi. Now remember, for most raviolis and that type of thing, I don't use a deep pot. I use a wide pot that's about 3 inches deep. It's a lot easier to control the delicate thing that you're making, whether it's a ravioli or a gnudi. And then you'll need something to fish them out of the water with, a slotted spoon or a strainer, or you can use them together, which helps to get them out faster, because you don't want them to overcook. If ravioli overcook, they'll hold together for a while before they start to fall apart. If the gnudi overcook, they'll fall apart a lot faster. And then we'll need some shallow bowls for serving and a plating spoon. Okay, that is all of the equipment. We will break, come back, and start cooking. Okay, the first thing on our prep list is to mix the dough and then chill it until it is firm. So we already have our flour here in this bowl. We're going to add the ricotta cheese, and we're going to add the mascarpone cheese, and then we're going to add the egg yolks that have already been lightly beaten. We're going to add the nutmeg and the spinach. Now the spinach in this case is more for appearance and a little bit of taste. I've seen gnudi recipes that use more spinach. They're more spinach dominant, okay, as gnudi. This is a more ricotta dominated mixture, okay? Then we're going to add some freshly ground black pepper, and then we're going to add some salt. Remember, don't over salt. It's always easier to add salt than to take it away. Then we're going to mix that up, okay? Okay, now I just want to taste it to see if it needs any more salt. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more salt and a little bit more pepper. Mix it some more. Okay, now we're going to taste it again. Good. The taste of the salt is just starting to come through. Now what I want to do is I'm going to scrape it down off the sides here and try to get it all kind of consolidated in the bowl. Then I want to put it into the fridge and chill it until it's firm. That's especially important if you happen to be working in a hot kitchen, okay? Because the ricotta and the mascarpone are going to get softer the warmer they get. So my kitchen's relatively cool and this is relatively firm, so it probably won't take too long to firm up, but we're going to put it into the fridge, cover it, put it into the fridge until it's firm. Probably take about a half an hour to an hour. Okay, the next thing on our prep list is to prepare a sheet pan with some cornmeal, and this is mostly to keep them from sticking to the pan, just like we did with like we've done with ravioli and with the pasta master recipe. Okay, we've had our dough in the fridge for about a half an hour, and now we're going to roll the gnudi. And I have here a bowl of water because I'm going to do this with damp hands. I'm just going to keep this off camera just a little bit so I can have the dough right in the center. Now what I want to do, first I need to dampen my hands, which I didn't do. Okay, now what we want to do is take a little bit of the dough and roll it into a ball, and then press that ball into like kind of an elongated, it's like a gnocchi, but this is a gnudi because it's made with ricotta, okay? And so that's about an inch long, about 3/4 of an inch wide, and we're going to put that down onto the sheet pan with the cornmeal, and then we're just going to do them all this way, okay? Roughly the same size. You can actually roll them into balls if you want, rather than into this elongated shape. But I kind of like the elongated shape rather than a ball. And we're going to keep them separated on the sheet pan. We're going to do this whole amount of dough this way. Keep them roughly the same size. Okay, here's our finished gnocchi. Now we're going to chill those until it's time to cook. We want to get them firm again. Well, one more thing. Before you chill them, if you want to, this is an optional step, if you want to, roll them in some cornmeal, okay? This isn't really necessary, but it will make them easier to handle when you go to the cooking step. So I am going to roll each one in cornmeal and then chill them. And here they are, all rolled in cornmeal. So now we're going to put them in the fridge, let them firm up, probably take 15 minutes to a half an hour. Okay, the next thing on our prep list is to sweat the shallots in 2 tablespoons of butter, and most of the butter is already melted in the pan here. And we're just going to sweat them like we always do. Meanwhile, we're going to saute the morels, and remember that's in 2 tablespoons of butter, little bit of salt, and just a twist of pepper. I decided to do it in this little wok. You could use any kind of saute pan. And then the shallots have finished their sweating. So now we're going to deglaze with about a half a cup of vermouth and about a cup of lobster stock. So that's not all the stock that we have here. It's I think we had 1.5 cups, so we're going to deglaze with about a cup of it, okay? And we're going to bring that to a boil and let it reduce by about half. Meanwhile, back at our morels, we're going to keep them moving and just saute them. Okay, our morels are looking good. You can see these. They're beautiful. Ooh, there we go. Nope. Where are they? There they are. Beautiful. And we're just going to keep these warm until we're ready to plate. All right, now we want to steam our lobster. So we're going to put about a half a cup of white wine into the steamer pot, along with the rest of our lobster stock. And then we'll put the steamer basket into place, add the lobster to the steamer basket, and then we're just going to give that lobster a little salt and pepper, and then put the heat on medium. And you want to keep an ear on it, not an eye on it. You want to keep an ear on it so that when you hear it start to boil, you'll start to get steam. We're going to let it steam. If it's uncooked lobster, you want to steam until it's opaque. If it's cooked lobster, we're going to go probably just about 3 minutes after it starts to boil. So I almost forgot, this is why we have a prep list. We want to put that thyme in with the lobster. Actually, you know what? Rather than putting it in with the lobster, I'm going to put it in with the steaming liquid. Put it down into the steaming liquid and then cover it up. That's why we have a prep list, so we don't forget things like that. Okay, our liquid in our pan here has reduced by about half, so we're going to take it off the heat and strain it. All right, now we want to start bringing our water to a boil. This is the water that we're going to be using to cook the gnudi. All right, now we want to strain our sauce into the clean pot. Now, question you may be asking is, do we really need to strain it? Couldn't we just leave the shallots in there? The answer is yes, you could. It's just a more elegant sauce if you strain the shallots out. Okay. Now I have strained them into a clean bowl. Now I'm going to rinse the saucepan and then put them back into the saucepan. Okay, we're pouring the sauce back into the clean saucepan. We're just going to keep this warm until we're almost ready to plate up. Okay, our lobster, this was cooked lobster, so this has been steaming, came to a boil and it's been steaming for about 3 minutes. Smell it. Oh yeah, great smell of lobster and the lobster stock and thyme. Okay, now we're going to take this off the heat and coarsely chop it. Okay, now this lobster is already in pretty nice sized pieces. You can see they're about 1 inch long. We're just going to chop some of the larger pieces because remember, we're going to be sharing this among the number of people in the description. And this is a small plate. And we want them to be bite-sized so that your guests can eat them without having to cut them with a knife. Okay, that looks pretty good, just like that. Now we're going to keep these warm until we're ready to plate. All right, now it's almost time to cook the gnudi, and you can probably see that our water is coming to a boil here. Now we're going to mount the sauce with butter. So I put it onto onto low heat, and we're just going to add 4 tablespoons of butter And then we're going to, this is mounting it, it means adding butter basically at the end, a la minute. And we're just going to swirl it around until that butter is incorporated. Okay, there we go. All of our butter is incorporated. And now what we want to do is adjust the seasoning. So we're going to take a little taste. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. And I'm not going to add any pepper because I'm going to grind some pepper over the gnudi after it's been plated up. So let's taste it again. Good, the salt taste is just coming through. Okay, now it's the moment of truth. We are going to cook, believe it or not, one gnocchi. Now, why are we going to cook one gnocchi? If it falls apart, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to have to remix the dough and remake the gnocchi by adding a little bit more flour. But what we're going to do is drop in one gnocchi, let it cook about a minute, 1 to 2 minutes, and when it floats to the top, it's done. You don't want to let it go too long, it'll fall apart. I am encouraged. It does not seem to be falling apart, which means we have a good consistency to our gnocchi. Now, you know, if it does fall apart, you should go back to the drawing board, take your dough, add about 1 to 2 teaspoons of flour and see what happens. Now, why do I say 1 to 2 teaspoons? It depends on how much it fell apart, how well it held together. If it almost held together, add a teaspoon of flour, remix the dough, make the gnocchi again. If it fell apart really easily, add 2 teaspoons of flour, or you might even add a tablespoon, depending on how well you think it held together or how much it was falling apart. All right, so this is looking pretty good. We're going to let this gnocchi float to the top, which is going to be somewhere between 1 and 2 minutes. And if it doesn't float to the top at pretty much the 2-minute mark, we're going to take it out, put it in a bowl, keep it warm, and then cook the others the same way. Okay, it's floated to the top. It's been just a little bit less than 2 minutes. We're going to take it out, put it into a bowl, and keep it warm until we're ready to plate the rest. Now we're going to add some more. I'm going to do these in batches because I don't want to drop the temperature too much. So I'm going to do about half of them, and then keep an eye on them. And as they float to the top, take them out, put them into your holding bowl. Okay, so most of these are floating. All right, so we're going to take them out and put them into our warming bowl. All right, and we're going to keep these warm and put in the second batch. Okay, our second batch is floating. I'm going to take them out of the water. Keep them warm until you're ready to plate up, but it is time to plate up. Okay, it's time to plate up. So what we're going to do is pool a little bit of sauce in the bottom of the bowl. I'm using these wide, shallow bowls. Remember, you're going to have to divide this sauce among the number of people that you're cooking for. Then the gnudi, and again, you're dividing these by the number of people that you're cooking for. Then some lobster. Then some morels. Then we're going to do some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. Then a twist of pepper. And chives. And there we have it. That's lesson 86, ricotta and mascarpone gnudi with lobster and morels. You can see photos of the final dish at my Instagram, which is @Chef's Apprentice, Cook Like a Pro. Next up is sauteed black truffle gnocchi with acorn squash, peas, and beurre noisette. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.